Welcome to Betting Weekly WTA, the women's tennis betting podcast, brought to you in association with Bet Rivers. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favourite podcast provider. And tell us what you think in the comments. Don't forget to follow us on social media as well. The handle is @BecauseWeWin. And you need to subscribe to the Betting Weekly newsletter with picks on various sports from all our handicappers. I'm Rory Jiwani. With me is Nigel Seeley. The women's singles final at Wimbledon will be between Amanda Anisimova and Iga Swiatek. We'll be looking in depth at the match and perhaps pointing you in the direction of the best bets. Nigel, I said on our Instagram that I thought Anisimova was too big for her semi-final against Aryna Sabalenka. You fancied the American for her quarter right at the start of the tournament, and you picked her yesterday. This is going to be her first Grand Slam final. Can she keep her form going?
Good morning to you, Rory. Yes, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, it was a pretty bad picks for us. You know, Jessica Pegula and the pick that we had in the women's singles. She went out in round one. Your pick. Who did you go for? I can't remember. You went for
Madison Keys.
Madison Keys. Yeah, I mean,
a few others. Yeah,
she went out, but we did give Anisimova some kind of hope. And as the tournament went on, obviously this is only our third show that we've done. When the tournament went on, I thought Anisimova would actually come through the section, possibly get to the final. I actually bet her at 33-1 during the tournament, but each way. So I've picked up that, and I was on a very well-known American TV show last week, and I gave Anisimova as the girl that you want to follow. So hopefully some of the people who are watching this show would have watched that as well. But I think she's got a tough order against Iga Swiatek, who's been getting better and better as every round has gone on. We're going to come on to that match in a little bit, in more detail. But I'm happy with Anisimova getting there. You say she's her first major final. I think that's going to be a little bit of a worry. I also think that when you beat the world number one, as I've said numerous occasions on Game Bet Match on this show as well, I think you have a little bit of a lull, and it's very, very hard to have a big upward turnaround. And especially in a short period of time when you just knocked out the world number one, the tournament favourite, and then 48 hours later, you've got to play in the final. So she's going to have a lot of media attention. I mean, nobody in America really knew this girl, unless you're a tennis fan. I mean, I had to explain on that show who she was, but nobody knew her. Now she's going to be on the front cover of every newspaper across America and on the back pages as well. And it's a lot to deal with. It's a huge amount to deal with. And I'm going to come on some of the reasons why I think she might be vulnerable in this match in a little bit later on some of the bets, the angles I'm coming on here. But I think it's a tough order. So I think Swiatek goes in overwhelming favourite. I'll give you some stats on the women's final. If you want some stats on the women's final, would you want me to come into the stats, Rory? What would you
go for it? Go for it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, the most amazing thing on this final is obviously you said it's Amanda Anisimova's first Grand Slam final. It's actually now Iga Swiatek's sixth major final. She's never lost a final, Iga Swiatek. She's won all five of the finals she's been in before. And only one person has ever taken a set off her in a final. She's won four of her finals in straight sets. That person to take a set was Mukova at the French Open a couple of years back. But she's dominant. Once she gets to finals, she knows what to do. She goes into this focus mode and she shows no signs of nerves, and she comes out fast and usually blitzes her opponent away. That's her style of play, and I think that's exactly what Anisimova was going to try to do here. Iga Swiatek's going to do here against Anisimova. If we look at it, amazingly, this has been the ninth different winner of Wimbledon in the last 9 years. A different women's winner has won in the last 9 years. Nobody's won it twice in that period, which I think is the longest period of single winners in any major on the women's draw. If you go back through history of anyone, nobody has gone on a longer stretch of single different people for 9 consecutive years. And the majority of them, I think all of them actually, are all first-time winners at Wimbledon. I think Serena Williams won it, and then the next 8 people have all been new winners at Wimbledon Championship. So it just shows you how open this tournament is. When we look at finals, go back to the last 20 Wimbledon finals, 9 of the underdogs have won, 10 of the favourites have won, but you've had some very, very short price favourites in that period when Serena Williams was dominating. If you bet every underdog in the final of Wimbledon, women's singles final over those last 20 years, you'd be making a profit of $748 if you bet every underdog for $100 stake. So $748 you would be making. The last 20 years of the final, the average total game is 21.65 at the final. The line is 21.5, bang right. The last 3 of the last 4 years have gone to a final set. And if you look at the last 20 Wimbledon women's singles finals, 6 of them have been over in straight sets, in 3 sets, and 14 have been over as straight sets. If Anisimova wins today, or wins tomorrow, she will become the biggest price favourite of Wimbledon on the match, on the final, since Maria Sharapova beat Serena Williams back in 2004. Not last year, the year before, Vondrousova was a plus 180 favourite, and that's the price of Anisimova. So underdogs do have a good record at Wimbledon, but they are usually a shorter underdog than the plus 180. Anyone who's bigger than plus 180 in the last 20 years has usually got beaten in the final. So it's a difficult one to pose. But if you bet every underdog over the last 20 Wimbledon finals, $748 you'll be making for a $100 stake.
So there are all the stats you need to know. Let's have a look at the prices for the match. Anisimova plus 180, as Nigel said. Swiatek minus 230. Spread 3.5 games. Totals 21.5. You can see the set betting. Anisimova to win in straight sets plus 390. Swiatek to win in straight sets plus 112. If it does go to 3 sets, Anisimova to come out on top plus 480, Swiatek plus 295, and total sets over 2.5 sets plus 150, under 2.5 sets minus 175. So let's have a think about this match. I want to look at their paths to the final, and I think there's a bit of a difference. Anisimova, she double bageled Yulia Putintseva in the first round. Then she beat Renata Zarazua fairly comfortably. She was taken to 3 sets by Dalma Galfi and then by Linda Noskova. She beat Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova in the quarterfinals 6-1, 7-6. And then she came through that epic match against Arina Sabalenka 6-4 in the third. Now, Iga Swiatek, she defeated Polina Kudermetova in the opener. Bit slow to get going, 7-5, 6-1. She dropped her only set of the tournament so far against Katie McNally, the first set, and then came back to win the next 2 sets, 6-2, 6-1. Danielle Collins, 6-2, 6-3. That was fairly comfortable. Clara Towson, she was a breakdown early on, and then the Dane seemed to be suffering from illness. That was a bit one-sided after that. That was 6-4, 6-1. Ludmila Samsonova, 6-2, 7-5. Samsonova, we know she's not great when the pressure's on and in the business end of tournaments, and that happened again in the quarterfinal. And then Belinda Bencic in the semis. Swiatek ran through that 6-2, 6-love. Bencic was suffering with a cracked toenail, which which I think is actually quite serious for tennis players. She only got through Andreeva despite that, and she had to cut a hole in her shoe because of that. She didn't look to be at her best. I don't think she'd have beaten Swiatek anyway. I would argue that Anisimova has had a harder route to the final. And I would also argue that Swiatek hasn't faced a genuine big hitter, with the possible exception of, Towson and Samsonova. I mean, Collins has never been good on grass. Towson was ill. Samsonova, mentally fragile at this stage of a tournament. I mean, she was always going to beat someone like Bencic. And I think Anisimova is just the sort of player that, especially on a quick surface like this, I mean, the service hold percentage has been just over 68, so it's not really quick, but it's quick enough. I think Anisimova has the tools to trouble Swiatek. I know, Nigel, you're quite keen on Swiatek, but do you see that Anisimova could force Swiatek into errors, particularly on that forehand side?
I think, the first thing you got to remember is this is her first major final. So pressure situation, you don't know how a young player like this is going to hold it. She's held it herself together very well through the tournament. She had a chance to serve it out against Sabalenka, was broken, and then probably for her, it was probably easier. I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes in women's tennis, it's easier to break the opponent rather than hold and serve him in pressure situations. So she did well in that match. I disagree with you completely on the fact that Iga Swiatek has. I think Iga Swiatek's had a much tougher route to this final than Anisimova. I mean, other than Sabalenka, who hasn't been anywhere near her best throughout the tournament. A match against Raducanu, she could have won that if she believed herself a little bit more. She was extremely lucky against Sigmund, the player ranked 120 in the world. She was
that was Sabalenka.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I mean,
that
wasn't. She wasn't. She wasn't playing the peak Sabalenka. So this is my point. So I'm saying Sabalenka, apart from Sabalenka, I think Pavlyuchenkova in the quarterfinals of a major, Noskova, not a player that you would associate. She was pushed tough against Galfi, whereas I think Swiatek, Towson, Samsonova is a player that is a grass court player. So I think if you look at the path, I would actually say that Swiatek's probably had the tougher route. I know that it may have played out in her hands in terms of Bencic and Towson. I don't think that she's had it easy, and I don't believe that Anisimova has had it tough. I think they've had both fairly routine routes to the to the final, apart from the Sabalenka match, an outsort Sabalenka. So that's one thing I would say there. I mean, the big concern for me is Anisimova, and I'm going to come with some specials in a minute. I don't really want to give too much away, but Anisimova serves far too many double faults. Far too many double faults. She served 36 double faults in this tournament so far, which is just ridiculous. I mean, she served 9 double faults against Zazu in 19 games. That is just off the scale, bad. And in nervous situations when you've never been serving for a major title, or those cheap points is going to be the thing where I think that she's going to be vulnerable. She has to start off fast, but we know that Iga Swiatek starts off fast. I would probably guess that Iga Swiatek breaks her fairly easy in the first game because her nerves should be all over her and her aggressive style, and then she could be like a 3-0 up in set 1, and it's whether Anisimova can find anything after what has been a tough route to this final. You've got to remember, she's played 141 games to get to the final, compared to Iga Swiatek, who's played 114. So essentially, that's a game and a match, a full match more she's played in terms of getting here. And you've got to remember, she started off with a 6-love win. So what she's done in all those matches before, 30 games against Sabalenka, 30 games against Noskova, 30 games against Galfi. I mean, that's a tough run to this final. And you've got to remember, it's going to be 31 degrees on centre court tomorrow, which is low 90s. High humidity, probably be 110. I think that Swiatek's going to be much fresher, much fresher. She only played 14 games in the semi-final, 17 against Towson, 17 against Collins. She breezed through everybody. So I think that is a big advantage here. And I think the extra experience that that Swiatek has over Anisimova, and the fact that she's been the takeout. I know Anisimova's just gone under the radar and looked good, but Swiatek has been the takeout ever since the last 16 for me. And I think we had this opinion that she couldn't do it on grass. I think she's shown she can. I think the slower courts this year and some tactical changes she's made. And I don't think Anisimova, because has the weapons to stop them. How's she going to beat her? She doesn't serve enough aces. She'll go at it at the back of the court against Iga Swiatek. If she goes and tries to do that, she's going to get out hit. Swiatek's got the big game experience, and the fact that she's got a 100% record in majors just shows you that she's dialed in for these matches. So, unfortunately, Rory, I'm going to disagree with you. I think Iga Swiatek wins this, and I think she'll win it quite well. I was looking at the -3.5 to cover the 3.5 because we know that she wins sets 6-2, 6-3, 6-1. I mean, she's done it all the way through this tournament. I was looking at 2-0 Iga Swiatek as well at +112, but I think I'm gonna have just a small bet on Iga Swiatek -3.5. I mean, you're probably going to disagree with us, so we'll end up having no bet on the final. But I got a feeling that Swiatek will prove far too strong for her. A lot of tennis. Those extra time on court is massive, especially in these conditions. 27 games more. It's a lot.
I think one thing that has been a positive, I know I've been a bit down about Swiatek, but one thing that has been a big positive has been her serving. I mean, that's become a real weapon. I mean, looking at average first serve speed, her first serve average speed is faster than Sabalenka. she's been topping 180 kilometers per hour. Sabalenka's about 178, 179. Anisimova's is a bit down on that at around 170. I think it being hot might actually help Anisimova, though. I mean, you're saying from the baseline. I mean, Anisimova is one of the few players that can hit through Sabalenka. She is, I would put, in terms of power from the baseline, I'd put Anisimova, Sabalenka, and Ostapenko in a sort of category of their own, and then, the rest below them. So I think if Anisimova, if it goes to a baseline duel, I think Anisimova will handle herself pretty well. I think I do agree with you, though, that the worry for me is it being a first slam final. I think, but to be honest, if the nerves don't get to her, I think she's got a really good chance. I think just her game. Okay, this is my kind of opinion, which I've held for a long time. I'm still not ready for Swiatek to win a grass court slam. That's basically what it is. I know it's slightly slower, but I don't think, and looking through her grass court career, she's never faced a hitter as big as Anisimova on grass on her career. And we saw what Jess Pegula did to her in Bad Homburg. And I wouldn't call Pegula a massive hitter. Pegula won that in straight sets.
And Anisimova's going to have the crowd as well. That's Toronto will have a lot of people. They want, there'll be a lot of Polish fans in there, but I think that Anisimova, the underdog, will have the majority of the crowd. Just going back to the heat. The heat is, tennis players play around the world. They're playing hot conditions around the world. I make a big thing about the heat. Where I use the heat in is at the time they've had on court. So if we go from the third round, so you remember these matches come quick, fast and furious. So the second week of Wimbledon is usually when the third round starts, around about that sort of time, the last 9 games. Anisimova has been involved in 120 games of tennis, compared to Iga Swiatek has been involved in the 68 games of tennis. Now that is a difference of 52 matches, which is the equivalent of 2.5 extra matches. Yeah. And I think that will eventually take its toll. And the mentally exhaustion about the Sabalenka match, the euphoria and the media attention on her. This is a fragile girl as well. She's had obviously well-documented problems. I think she'll be able to deal with that. But you don't know how she's going to handle the pressure of her first Wimbledon final. And there's some good angles on the spreads that are on the specials that I like here.
Okay. I mean, although I've got a feeling for Anisimova, I'm probably not going to have a bet. I mean,
I'm not going to have a bet on this match. I did say -3.5. So if you quite like Anisimova and I quite like Swiatek, we'll just have a sportsman's bet between the two of us on the 3.5. But the official bets I'm going to have will be on some of the prop markets. I'll leave this, but I do think Swiatek will win fairly comfortably, and you think he might be competitive.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at some of those prop markets, Nigel. You've teased us with it. What do you fancy? Let's have a look at some of them.
I touched on it there, didn't I? I mean, the amount of double faults that Anisimova has had on this tournament, I mean, it's insane. So 36 double faults is a double fault every 0.25 games she plays. So if you've got the final in for 21.5 games, you would suggest that Anisimova would get 5.37 double faults. And compare that to Swiatek, she's only served 15 double faults, which is 0.13 per game. So the double faults on the data throughout the tournament should be around about 8. So total double faults should be 8. That is the data of the whole tournament. But then when you factor in this is a Wimbledon final and pressure, I think that moves it up by 1.5. So I think the line should be 9.5, the double faults here. So the first bet I like is over 8.5 double faults at -114. I think that's a great bet. Anisimova, so 5 double faults against Sabalenka. She shoves on her own. This is on her own, not in the match. 6 double faults against Pavlyuchenkova. 6 double faults against Noskova. 8 double faults against Gaufi. And 9 double faults against Zazu in a match that only had 19.5 games. Now, obviously, you want more games. If you're playing the double faults, you want to go to the third set. But even on averages where they've gone to lower games, the totals in the early rounds, Anisimova's covered this on her own in a couple of matches. So I think over 8.5 double faults is a my first official place. I'm betting over 8.5 double faults. Now, the other bet I like here is most aces, Iga Swiatek -1.5 at +120. And this here is a bet I love, right? Because I tell you why I like this. If you look at the aces on the tournament, Anisimova has served 23 aces in the tournament, which is 0.16 ace per game of 141 games. Swiatek has served 21 aces across 114 games, which is 0.18 ace per game. The Swiatek has the advantage on the aces ahead of Anisimova. She's slight favourite. But the interesting point for me is how many times Swiatek has been aced herself. So she's scurrying to try to get a racket onto every point. Now, this is outstanding in terms of tennis stats. Against Bencic never served an ace. Samsonova, one of the biggest servers in the women's game, across 20 matches, never served an ace. Towson, another one of the biggest servers in the women's game, never served an ace. McNally, in 27 games against Iga Swiatek, never served an ace. That is outstanding retrieving. That is outstanding resilience from Swiatek to fight, to scurry for every ball. Her service improved. She will probably go for bigger serves here. The fact that she's used to Grand Slam finals, but she'll probably be less nervous, so she might go for a little bit more than Anisimova. But the fact that against in the whole of Wimbledon this year, Swiatek has only conceded 5 aces against her across 114 tennis matches in 6 rounds of tennis, which is unbelievable stats. 27 games against McNally, she wasn't ace once. 20 games against Samsonova, wasn't ace once. Bencic didn't ace her. Towson just the once. I mean, that's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So they're my 2 special bets. Anisimova, I also like the most double faults -3.5 Anisimova. I mean, but if we're going for 8.5 double faults, we're already in there. But I think over the under 2.5 Anisimova races is interesting as well as -106. There's only one person all Wimbledon who would have cashed for all 5 out of 6 matches if you bet under 2.5 against Swiatek's opponents. The only person who did that was Kudermetova in round 1. But yeah, I think there's some good value here. So over 8.5 double faults at -114, and Swiatek -1.5 in the most aces at +120.
Yeah, I really like the double faults bet. I think that's cracking. Swiatek can throw in a few as well. I mean, against Towson, she served 5 double faults and they were all in the first set.
And that was in 17 games.
Yeah. So,
I mean, the average of the tournament, Rory, is basically is 0.13 per game, Swiatek, 0.25 for Anisimova. So if we times 0.25 by 21.5, which is the games, you would have Anisimova in for 5.37, and you would have Swiatek in for 2.7. So on an average round, it's 8. So it's 8. But obviously, this is the Wimbledon final.
Exactly.
So you move it up. Every time I've ever traded these kind of markets, or was an odds kind of do these markets, you would move it up by 1.5 to the average. So the 9.5 would be the line. 8.5 is purely and simply based on the stats of the tournament. And I don't think you can do in such a high-profile match with someone who is really vulnerable for double faults here. And she's the dog, and she's never been in the final. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and most aces sounds good as well. As I say, Swiatek's serving has been very good. Anisimova, not so much. But as you say, Swiatek doesn't give up a lot of aces. So that looks a very, very good bet as well. I wouldn't be so keen on the most double faults because Swiatek can serve a few. But Anisimova will probably serve more.
Yeah, that's a 3.5 though handicap.
Yeah,
it's not just most double faults. That's 3.5 handicap.
Yeah, that's quite a big spread, I think.
See, that's been factored in because the average, the difference on the 2 tournaments is 2.6. So that's been put up by 1 because it's a Wimbledon final, but the double faults is purely on the tournament average.
Interesting. No, nice props there, Nigel. Very good. I think Yeah, I think I'll be following you in there on the total double faults because, as you say, in a Wimbledon final, especially early on, there are going to be nerves for both players. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's the first major final for Anisimova, but for Swiatek as well. She hasn't won a slam since Roland Garros last year. No one, well, I say no one, not many people would have expected her to reach the final here. But she will. She is the favourite. There will be some pressure on her, and it wouldn't surprise me to see her serve some double faults early doors. So no, it looks really good there, Nigel. Final thoughts. So you think Swiatek will win quite comfortably? What will be your sort of rough score prediction?
I'd go 6-3, 6-4 Swiatek, but I'd like it to be 6-3, 7-5. Swiatek to get more games so we can get some more double faults. But obviously, because we're not having an official play on it, we're betting on these double faults and these aces. We want it to go to 3 sets. Yeah. That's what you want. If we go to 3 sets, we win on the double faults. If Swiatek wins easy, then we may have a problem. But we want it to go to 3 sets. But I think Swiatek will win it, but I don't think she's going to win it really easy. I think, yeah, maybe 6-4, 6-3, 7-5.
Okay. Well, as I say, I mean, I think if Anisimova copes with the nerves, I think she's got a really good chance here just in her game. These two have never met before. And as I say, Swiatek has never faced a hard hitter like Anisimova on grass. But we shall see. Obviously, you can watch the match live and you can bet and play with Bet Rivers. Should be very exciting stuff. That's the women's tournament. We've been with you right from the beginning. We had the draw and we've been giving you updates through the tournament and now the final, and can't wait to see what happens. That's the women's. The men's, Nigel, you and Sean have been doing all right this couple of weeks.
Slightly in front. I think we probably about level actually. Sean's in front, level around that kind of about level,
which is very good for this tournament.
And we'll be back on Saturday to preview the men's final. We don't know who it is yet because obviously we're recording this before the semi-final, so we'll know the final a little bit later on today, and we'll record a show tomorrow for Sunday's big final.
Yeah, looking forward to that, and of course all the other sports on Betting Weekly live, especially the Club World Cup, Chelsea and PSG in the final of that. That'll be in a couple of days' time. So the boys will give you their best tips for that. As I said at the top of the show, make sure you like and subscribe to us on YouTube and sign up to the Betting Weekly newsletter. And give us your thoughts on the women's final in the comments on YouTube. Who do you think is going to win between Anisimova and Swiatek? Do you agree with Nigel that Swiatek's going to win it comfortably? Or do you think, like me, that Anisimova has a chance? Give us your comments. And hope you've enjoyed the show. And we'll be back. When are we going to be back? Probably Sunday, because it all starts again on the normal WTA tour after the Lord Mayor's show a bit. But I think they're back on the clay next week, so it's a bit mad. It's a bit all change. Well, thanks again, Nigel, and thanks for watching. And we'll see you again soon on Betting Weekly WTA.